Okay.
Okay, my name is Iving Isaaeson. I'm a World War II veteran. I started in March of '41 before the war started, and I was in what they call conscription to go in for 1 year. And of course, when the war broke out, they kept us. And within a month, we were going overseas. We went to Brooklyn Navy Yard, and we got on the boats. These are the transport boats that had about 4 decks, and we were packed like sardines because they didn't even know how to do that. We had World War I helmets. We had regular fatigues, chinos, instead of having the combat colors, which we got later. And as I say, we went from there to New York, and we went to, got on the boat, and the boat went for about 30 days because it went zigzag because of the submarines. They didn't want to go straight. So where the trip could have taken probably half the time. And we landed in Australia. We stayed there 2 days. Rumor was we were going to Bataan. And when Bataan fell, we got on the boat again. We ended up in New Caledonia, which was a very good country. And from New Caledonia, with training, we went to Guadalcanal. After Guadalcanal, we went to Fiji's for rest and recreation. We went to Bougainville. Have you heard of that?
Never heard of that.
Bad area, too. And most of us had malaria. It was very bad. It was strictly infantry. Of course, the weather was very hot. It was in the South Pacific. And from Bougainville, we ended up going to the Philippines, each time in combat. And just to throw something out, when I was ready to come home, you needed 85 points to come home. I had 105, not 86 or 87. And I had to wait my turn, and I landed in the hospital with malaria. I was shipped home. So I had served 3 years and 3 months overseas, combat infantry. I got a few medals, which you'll see there. And as I say, I'm here and I'm thankful.
Mm-hmm.
How about do you come about getting those points or whatever? Like you're saying you had 105?
So much for overseas, so much for combat. In other words, let's just say 5 points for every combat, so many points for overseas. In other words, 3 years overseas, so many points. I can't tell you specifically. Each combat, it was 85 points. And on paper, I'm supposed to go home. They started to go home about 1 a month. There were 20 of us.
Really?
And eventually I got in the hospital again with malaria, and they shipped me home. So I can't tell you specifically, but something on that idea. So many days for overseas, so many points for combat, and whatever else. And it was 85 points. I know that's in there too.
Yep. And what exactly were the medals that you won?
Well, I got the Bronze Star and combat infantry. And the Presidential Unit Citation is a Navy medal, but because we work with the Marines who are Navy, we got that medal. Then you get Good Conduct Medal, Overseas Medal. I have about 6 medals, but the big one is the Bronze Star, which I have a plate.
Mm-hmm. What did you feel like was the most significant part of you being over there, and this most significant part of the war in general?
I didn't like it, but there was nothing you can do when you're in the service. You do what they say,
Yep.
and you have to commit your efforts, do what you can. We weren't, as you say, we didn't like it, but you didn't do anything about it. You couldn't, and you just waited your turn, and whatever they said to do, you do. This is what you have to. And as I say, I wasn't happy there, but I'll say again.
Were most people not happy?
Or? No, the morale was very good. The morale was excellent. But I say we waited to go home. And if you check records now, nobody's overseas that long, I mean, in our particular group. And we lost a lot of men in each battle, and you get replacements. As I say, at the end of my group, there were about 20 left out of 200, either, killed or wounded. And then they started to send us home 1 or 2 a month, which was 20 months. It's over a year. We wanted to get home.
So what kind of basic training did you do prior to heading over there?
Well, you have your basic training, you know, your rifle, your shooting, combat with each other, you know, physical combat, doing things at night, you know, night maneuvers, and I'd say whatever the training was necessary, you did.
Whereabouts did you go for your training?
Well, in Camp Edwards in Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
It ended up, I went in Camp Edwards and I came home. It was a separation center. I came back to Camp Edwards. So coincidentally, I was in both places. And then we went down maneuvers in South Carolina. You go there for 2 weeks. This was before the war broke out. So you know, you get your training and everything. It's strictly infantry training.
Was there some kind of culture shock? Because there's people in training and you went to war with from all around the country?
No. Hello, Tom.
So there was no culture shock whatsoever?
What do you mean by culture shock?
Just like, because you're from Massachusetts, and there'd be people from, say, Carolina, Dakota, or South Carolina.
No, most of the people in our group
were from Massachusetts. Okay.
And talking about that, when we were in Camp Edwards, it's what they call a square division. And we're the Yankee division. And we met a lot of Southern people. And there were a lot of fights there, you know, small bar fights. But not while we were in the service, actually, in the fighting. No, it was mostly Massachusetts.
What was your specific military occupation? You said infantry.
Well, infantry is...
So what does that entail? Just
combat infantry, fighting the enemy.
Yeah. Yep. So you're like
you go out
front
on patrol.
line.
You go out on patrol. You encounter the enemy. You search for the enemy. And of course, you have your artillery behind you and all that. But on the infantry, you search for the enemy and combat the enemy. Well,
you obviously went to the Pacific.
Yeah.
What side did you think was more important, the European or the Pacific?
I wouldn't say. I think both were important. I'd put them even, Steve.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Was there any hatred against the Japanese in your infantry?
Oh, yes. Because they were vicious.
Shut the door.
If you had, if you see the movies, they were sniping, they were doing everything against what you're supposed to have in the Geneva Convention and everything. They were not being ethical. And if you saw some, they put them in these, you know, underground and everything. You've seen the movies probably.
Yeah.
I don't know which ones. And they were bad. They were the enemy, if you know what I mean. Very bad. And in Guadalcanal, we had to learn what their tactics were. And they were vicious. That's the only word I can use. And then from them, we learned how to handle them. So when you went to other areas, you handle them different.
Do you remember any specific encounter?
No.
No?
I mean, did I go hand to hand with 6 of them? No.
Do you want to describe your superior officers and what they were like?
Well, they were good. The only thing is, when I went in, my unit was National Guard, not an actual army. I don't know if you know the difference. And they were kids off the streets. A lot of them were 18, 19 years old. And they had to learn too. They weren't the best officers or thing. But you'll be surprised when you're in combat, you learn, you change. You can have the toughest, worst kid in the street. When he becomes in battle, he's wonderful. And this is what happened. But when we went in, a lot of these kids, I say these sergeants and corporals, knew not. The officers were good. But a lot of the sergeants had to learn too. And the National Guard was not the same as the real Army, which we became, you know, eventually. Yeah.
You'd say were there inspiration from the officers?
No, the officers were good. I had no problem with the officers.
How old were you when you first?
21.
21.
Right on the button. 21.
That's when you first went to war?
Yeah.
Okay.
You had to be 21 to be drafted.
Mm-hmm.
I was just 21. Later, you could be 18 or whatever it was. But when we went in, they were 21 or 36. And when we went in, if you were married, children, or business, you went in. This was 1941. Mm-hmm. Eventually, if you had children, you didn't have to go. If you had a business, you didn't have to go, or you could stay out for a year or something. But when we went in at first, they grabbed physically everybody.
Did you feel that the draft was a bad thing, or is it like, I mean, it's something that had to be done? And like
at that time, definitely.
Had to be some.
The war was worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. You had an enemy, and you had to encounter them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did your parents feel about
How
you
did
being
your parents feel?
Your parents feel?
Oh, my parents, they cried.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
When my brother went over there, my mom was inside by the phone
Oh, yeah.
all day, every day.
No, it's a tough feeling.
Mm-hmm. How did the people in Australia? You said you went to Australia. You started.
We were only there 2 days, but they were wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
We actually stayed in their home,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, eventually we got fed, by the Australians. Very, very nice.
Then at Guadalcanal, there was obviously local people there too.
No.
No, there was.
Didn't encounter. No, that was combat.
Yeah. So there's nothing.
Fijis, we had local
Okay,
people.
Fiji. How?
Definitely, they were wonderful.
They're wonderful.
Very cooperative, yeah.
Do you think it was because you were helping that? You're helping them
Definitely,
basically.
Sure. They became our scouts and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But Guadalcanal was strictly, fighting.
How did you feel like you were treated once you got back to the States?
Home?
Yeah.
Nothing exciting.
Yeah.
I got home, I can picture myself in the subway with my duffel bag, no bands or anything. So that's it.
That's it.
Just went home, got my discharge.
You felt like you did some good though, definitely.
But
You definitely felt like you did good over there.
I did, yeah.
Did your job well?
Sure. Oh, yeah. I served my country well. Yeah. I'm what they call a disabled veteran. I get a 10% permanent disability. When you get out, they see what you and I ended up with 70% disability, and then it went down as I was home, and I got a 10% permanent disability from the service. I get so much money every month.
Were you like injured or sick at all besides malaria?
No, I just had malaria, and that's about it.
What was that? What was that like?
Malaria, you get a high fever, and you get flat in your back for at least 24 hours. You can't do anything. And you take your pills, and after about 48 hours, you're back on your feet. But then it reoccurs probably 6 months later, 3 months later, or even a month later. But it was very bad. And they didn't have the proper medical attention then when we went in. As I say, that this was all new to them. But malaria, that was my worst thing.
So did you had it come up the one time and then you were sent home, or did you have it come up like you said?
Malaria, I had it about 6 times.
6 times.
They leave you there.
So once you're back on your feet, they put you back out there.
That's right, yeah. So when I was in the hospital with the 6th time, the doctor who met me, how long you've been here and everything, he said, I'm shipping you home. I was overseas over 3 years then. He says, you're getting home, which made sense to me.
So that must have been a good feeling to hear those words.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What was it like losing? Like you obviously became good friends with the people you were.
Oh, yeah. And you had good friends. We lost some buddies, while you're there. And I still correspond today. I still send, Christmas cards. A lot of them have passed on because they're all in their 80s. And a lot of them have passed on either from, physical being or age. But I still send Christmas cards to these people.
So you become very tight group in those 3 years.
I deal with people in Ohio. See, we're from Massachusetts, but the replacements came from all over. And as I say, we still correspond.
Have you ever felt like that type of bond, like any other time throughout your life, or like?
Well, I had other friends here.
Yeah,
but no, a lot of them, as I say, I still keep in touch with them. Of course, most of when I got home. Not now. Now, as I say, we're all older. We moved away. You don't keep in contact, but we still have reunions, and we go, once a year, and we try and meet. But it goes from 50 to 40 to 30, and we still have reunions once a year.
So how would you sum up your the Allies' efforts in World War II?
Well, the Allies, you can't beat an American person. Their initiative and everything is great. As I say, you take a bum off the street and you give him a rifle, he's a different person. He's out, to help you and the group, and he becomes wonderful people. Yeah, definitely.
What kind of gun were you issued? Just
well, the Garand, first to Springfield, and others, officers had pistols, and I should know. I had a Garand, which is a regular rifle, and then they had the shorter ones. I can't think of the name right now. But we went from the old Springfield. You had a hand do
bolt action.
The Garand is automatic.
Yep.
Different thing, just like an auto. Then we had these big, the big automatic rifle. How'd it come to me? And you'd have one out of like every 20 people. It's all like an automatic machine gun, but you could carry it in your back.
Yeah.
In the group, you'd have regular infantrymen, and then you had the heavy weapons, which had the mortars, the heavy rifles, and things like that to support us, as we went through there. I can't think of it, but it's much bigger rifle and heavier. It does more rounds naturally than the other. But like when we went in, we got what they called canned sea rations. I don't know if you heard of that. And it was in a can. You open the can, you cut your finger. If you cut your finger in the Pacific, it doesn't heal. Eventually, it came to K ration, which was in a cardboard box. And things like that, so they improved as time went by.
So they learned from earlier mistakes, and by the end they had corrected a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, we were the guinea pig. We went in right after the war started. Yeah. And you see, you can't compare that with the Europe. Europe was cold with the snow. We had the heat. I wouldn't dare compare.
It was totally different circumstances.
Definitely, yeah.
Because you had the cold, you guys have the heat and disease.
Yeah, definitely. It's no comparison. They fought their war, we fought our war.
I think that's all for questions that we have.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Do you feel like anything towards like the Germans or anyone else?
I am against the Japanese.
Against the Japanese.
That's me. I'll see if I
Still
can...
today, or?
Yes. I'll see if I can tell you this story. I fought against the Japanese. This man came in when I was working, and I said, look at this beautiful set of knives made in Germany. He was giving out gifts. He lost half his family in the Holocaust, okay? He was selling stuff made in Japan. You follow me? I resented what he did, and here he's against that, which is true, which is good. So this is what has happened, but at the moment I won't buy a Japanese car, which today it's almost the best, right?
Yeah.
Supposedly. And that's my opinion. I'm still against the Japanese.
Has it kind of tailed off, not as much now as it was when you first came back from war?
Of course, because now that group is gone too. Why should I be mad at a Japanese who's 18 years old? But it still could have been his grandfather. But no, it's subsided quite a bit. I love everybody.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.